Order for breaking news, Cassie and a message in our Bremo. And there I will Ghana to order for breaking news being a bit to order for where the move a Raya Bank of Ghana for or Mancas or Makachi. Yankasa, governor of the Bank of Ghana, or no Babontia, order in some Ababek to Abontin concerning sending Sika Sem Echo. Senia chese the dollar ye sidi na adi na eko senia ekwanya omofa so a omutumi di stabilize eye dollar no as against the cedi no dofo Bank of Ghana nankasa waba abonten ena ode nsem de nsem ehwiam ede ababa tutu abonten ekwanya omode Ghana yisika sem nyina efa so na be ya Ghana bitumi nya ntuma pa efura odofo governor of the Bank of Ghana mamunim say Obon who modin ye kese pan o Ghana ase enyo no nko oni yankase finance minister yi ato forcing no mobom hu modin pan e o Ghana ase John Dramani Mahama nanse o ka kire ne se ekwan a omo fa so e stabilize cedi no as against the dollar no omo nkoso a no omo fa so no omo nyeman because omo djuma eso enipa onim senia omo ye no but John Dramani Mahama se omo nkoso a na ejuma pa na omo ye no omunkoso no munye na economy no etumi ngina brand se na be ya edwedifo nyina no omakoma ebeto omuyim na fensu no cedi no akoso enya hoode as against the dollar dofo when ensem there John Dramani Mahama edema governor of the Bank of Ghana any ato force no see ade omuye nyina no omunkoso anye se na be ya yesika sem ebekoso egina brand as against the dollar dofo Governor of the Bank of Ghana Ababontin Edin Sem de Abetu Abonti am subidi nyina bro e organize to fumanko ne akoje sanse mu nyina nchemu efi yankase governor nano ne amra isia e organize so.
So as we gather for this 127th session of the Monetary Policy Committee, the data before us is quite revealing. It paints a very different picture from where Ghana stood barely a year ago. From the data, the economy has turned a decisive corner. Inflation is not only back within the target band, it has eased faster than we anticipated. The exchange rate has remained broadly stable, and the external buffers that we have is quite strong. And perhaps most encouraging, the real sector is showing signs of sustained revival. The staff briefing that we have confirms that the initial conditions for this meeting are the strongest we have had in several years. Headline inflation is at 8.0%. Core inflation measures are between 5 and 7%. And expectations remain well anchored. The cedi has demonstrated resilience in 2025, supported by improved confidence, strong operational reforms in the FX market, and robust trade and reserve inflows. Gross reserves, on the other hand, have risen to over $11 billion US, which are equivalent to 4.8 months of imports cover. And these are projected to reach 5 months by the year end. What stands out, colleagues, this quarter is the broad momentum in economic activity. Growth has been stronger and more diversified than anticipated. And I can give you the details. The first half of the year recorded 6.3% GDP growth. This was driven mainly by vibrant expansion in services and agriculture, while non-oil GDP surged to 7.8%. Our high-frequency indicators that we monitor also echo this trend. That is, the composite index of economic activity suggests an increase of about 9%, and business and consumer sentiments also remain firmly positive. Taken together, these gains confirm that the negative output gap is narrowing and the economy is gradually shifting from recovery to expansion. But the turnaround is not accidental. It reflects our sustained fiscal discipline, the cautious but determined monetary stance, and structural policy reforms, particularly the improvements in the FX operations framework and the rebuilding of our external buffers. The 2026 budget that was just presented reinforces this discipline and places growth and job creation at the center of Ghana's next phase of economic transformation. Looking ahead, the growth outlook remains favorable. Staff projections, supported by recent real sector indicators, suggest that the economy will maintain a steady expansion path throughout next year, 2026. The strong harvest season, improved food supply dynamics, enhanced FX liquidity, and the easing credit environment, these all provide support for continued growth into next year. The non-oil sectors, services, industry, and agriculture are all expected to remain the key drivers. So the broader macro also supports this trajectory. Money supply growth has moderated significantly, helping anchor inflation. Real rates remain high, creating room for a carefully calibrated easing cycle. And with inflation likely to settle between 4 to 6% by year end, before stabilizing around the target band in 2026, Ghana is entering what could become a multi-year period of price stability. At the same time, the global environment remains fragile, and we must remain alert to the risks. Talking about commodity price savings, commodity price swings, geopolitical tensions, and tighter external financial conditions. On the domestic front, pressures around taxes, utilities, and cost of credit continue to weigh on business activity, even amid improved optimism. So for today's deliberations, colleagues, there are three areas that deserve our most careful attention. The first one is the pace of disinflation and the real interest rate path. As inflation declines faster than projected, the real interest rates have risen sharply compared to our last meeting. The staff analysis shows scope for gradual easing, but the balance must preserve credibility and avoid undermining the disinflation gains. The second area I want to point out is the FX market, talking about the reforms and also our reserve strategy. While the new FX operations framework that we introduced has improved transparency and market functioning, staff have highlighted the need to educate the public and to diversify reserve assets so as to limit concentration risks, particularly around gold holdings. Then the third area is the financial sector stability and credit transmission. The banking sector remains sound, as you will find from the data, but asset quality and recapitalization risks for a few institutions need to be addressed. Indeed, a healthy credit channel is essential to sustaining the emerging growth momentum that we are observing. Colleagues, Ghana's macroeconomic path is clearly stabilizing, and the foundations for sustained growth are strengthening. The task before us this morning is to protect the stability while supporting the real sector's recovery. And our decisions today must reinforce confidence, signal predictability, and keep the economy on its path toward higher job-rich growth. I look forward to your perspectives as we examine the data more closely, and I agree on the policy stance that best balances these priorities. I thank you for your attention.
Out of four, when breaking news, if just a Bank of Ghana for Akachi, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Eye Johnson Esiama Onankasa.
When you are going to buy a paint,
all this breaking news when you never to abonti a me so beginning in bro. Ewo Ghana to your phone. Uti nsem na okan na o si inflation yesi kasem bibia edida na akwemu kama odofo utumi hu say governor of the Bank of Ghana oni ni team no any finance minister so any ni team no omo bo adwumadin ye pan wo Ghana te se na be yesi kasem no ebetumi agina brand na Ghana menewo etumi anya ye ntoma pa efra odofo we ene nsem a efie akase governor of the Bank of Ghana ho a aba betodwa a me so medire nyina brɛ ewo Ghanatube odofo me assure say we ni age nsem na yanka say governor of the Bank of Ghana wa pro eni egu social media ne so a me so medire nyina brɛ ewo Ghanatube odofo sensem ne ye da make sure say be like na wa subscribe na wa share na wa hit notification bell so man say na be ya bring ya bibia do pe content say ya wo na mo na nkasa no wo nya ne tempa no wa hwe meet odofo aha and I'm say good news when you know if governor of the Bank of Ghana ABC our Ghanatube so therefore makram nyina medam nyina se bebre